All right, so this is one of my favorite trees, and I know it has some edible aspects. I've not used it for that, but this is American Basswood, Tilia americana. In Pottawatomi, it's called Weegobatuk, Ojibwe Weegobatuk. You hear it called the weak beech as well. But this is a really special tree. And one of the things about it that's special is that this bark that it has on the young trees has a lot of fiber. So I was talking about making string or cord. This bark here has these long inner bark strands which travel up the tree. So if we were going to harvest this for fiber, if we wanted to weave a bag or let's say we're going to tie up a frame for a lodge, and we had to make all those ties, we would take and typically we would want to go back further into the woods where we wouldn't have one which was so branchy, and we would find something about this size here is about perfect. The bigger the around the tree is, the weaker the fiber. So you know, if you see a big basswood like that, it's got really weak fibers, a lot of fibers, but so it's good to harvest the little ones. And when you harvest them, it has another characteristic about it, which is that they grow sucker shoots. So when you harvest, don't cut it off close to the ground. Cut it off, you know, maybe this high up, and it'll leave a little stump. And then what'll happen is the next year you'll come back and that stump will have, you know, 30 little branches on it, and then 5 years later you'll have 30 more where you took the one, and you can keep going back to those same basswoods to harvest more. But typically when you cut these, like I said, you cut a small section, and then you try to get a long length, you know, like maybe 10 foot or 20 foot without any branches. And then you take the back of your axe and you just kind of thump it. And when you thump it, like if you ever pounded black ash to make baskets, it's the same thing. You don't got to be that detailed, but it just loosens the bark up from the wood, and then you pull that in strips. You wouldn't want to pull a strip all the way down the tree because it would taper off. So it's like when you peel a banana, it's the same way peeling basswood. You peel one strip and then you go to the next side and peel that, and you might take 4 or 5 all the way around and down, and then you coil those up. If you wanted to use them for tying like a frame for a wigwam, or just tying something immediately when it's fresh and green and has the sap in it, you could do that right away. You just split the outer bark off of it by cracking it, and then just pull it, and you're splitting it apart, and take that inner bark and use it up. But if you wanted to use it for making bags or for weaving or making rope, then what you have to do is you have to prepare it. There's 2 ways to prepare it. Those are called retting, or like a controlled rotting process. So the one way that we do most often is we leave the outer bark on and make a big coil of all the strips and take them out to a lake. Like you could bring them right out here to Red Lake. And then my favorite way to do it is to cut usually your pole that you peeled, and to sharpen it with your axe on one end, and then use some of the basswood bark to tie it part way onto the pole and go out into the lake far enough out, and then where the water may be 8 feet deep, and then you push that pole down so the pole's still sticking up, you know, a few feet above the water. And then tied about halfway down underwater is all your basswood coils. And you wait about 6 weeks. So it needs to stay under the water for about 6 weeks. Don't get excited and go check it, because if it's not done yet, it's going to smell really bad. It smells like poop. So you get that smell in your hands and you'll regret it. But once it's all done, what's happening is the bacteria that live in the lake and in the water they're feasting on all of the stuff which is in that bark, the sugars and starches. And they'll eat all that up, and when it's done, it'll be a beautiful white, almost white, flat ribbon. So what was one piece will be all those tons of flat ribbons, and then you can take those flat ribbons out and twist them up for fiber, or use them in a lot of ways. The other way to do it is you could peel this in, believe it or not, in January. Like this is one of the few trees that will peel year round. Most other trees, like if you wanted to peel elm bark or ash bark or cedar bark, there's only certain seasons, but this one will peel year round. And you could peel it in the winter time and take those coils of bark, and instead you put them into a kettle. And if you've ever made like a hominy or corn soup, where the wood ashes, this is the same thing. You take your wood ashes and put the same amount of wood ash in. You want it to be hardwood ashes, and you're going to make lye by doing that and boiling it, and you're going to boil it all day. That's what I always say, all day. You go, how long does it take? All day. So by the end of the day of boiling it, then that lye will do the same thing as the bacteria do, and they make the bark come apart in layers, but then you have to rinse it, so because you have to get all the lye out, and it's real absorbent, it'll hold it in there. So what I do is I usually take it to a creek or a stream, and I put it in that stream, and I'll tie it to a tree branch.